Welcome to our Press Plus One podcast. The year was 1976. Dolly Parton was as popular as Lady Gaga is today, and Elizabeth Gray has just found out she is adopted. Elizabeth runs away from home to find who she suspects is her real mother, Dolly Parton. Canadian filmmaker Tara Johns tells a heartwarming and poetic coming-of-age story, opening in Toronto this Friday, March 18th. Press Plus One sat down with Tara and talked to her about the film, Dolly Parton, a great soundtrack, and the gem of a film she can call her first full-length feature. Although we have the podcast, we've also done a transcribed version, which you can find at www.pressplusone.com. Because although the interview was fantastic with Tara, we heard a buzzing or feedback noise after the interview that we didn't hear during the interview. So it just depends on what you prefer. You can either listen to the podcast or read the transcribed version, or listen to the podcast while you're reading the transcribed version. You should check out the film. It is in Vancouver on April 8th and again in Toronto on March 18th. The year Dolly Parton was my mum. And here is our interview with filmmaker Tara Johns.
Don't know. But I hear they skip a generation, and my grandma's got melons. Melons? Like, how big? Really big. Like, Dolly Parton big?
Thank you very much for doing the interview with Press Plus One. I saw the movie the other day, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you. I'm glad.
Tell us a little bit about the development of the script.
I came up with the idea in my kitchen, sipping coffee when I was unemployed and looking for an idea for a short film. Sort of a couple of circumstances collided to give me the idea of a young girl sort of on a bit of an identity quest in the 70s. And the title, The Year Dolly Parton Was My Mom, obviously, was a little bit of the cherry on the sundae. It sort of became a project that I worked on spec because I didn't have, obviously, Dolly's collaboration at that time. So it took me about two and a half years. I got a producer on board right away, a woman named Barbara Schreier, who's wonderful and a big dynamo behind this project. She loved the idea, she loved the title, but she did let me know that, the only way that we could ever produce it is if I had Dolly's blessing for all the things I needed her for in order to make the film. So I worked on spec for about 2.5 years, and as I matured in the process of writing a script, my story and my script also kind of grew and matured. And by the time I had what I thought was a pretty strong script, I was able, by serendipitous means, to get in touch with a woman who could get my script directly into the hands of Dolly Parton. So it was a long journey, and it was a bit of a gamble, but when she did finally read it, Dolly sent me a letter via fax that came in through the office, the production office, and she addressed it to me, and she had spent the weekend reading what she called my wonderful script, and she gave me her blessings. That she was flattered and honored, and allowed me to use all of the things I asked for, as well as a little extra, and she just asked me to take out some of the swear words.
Bless her.
Yes, bless her heart.
I really suspect that this film will get a huge support worldwide, because I think, for one thing, there are a lot of Dolly Parton fans that, have grown over the years, but also the type of story. This is a real coming-of-age story for women, and that's quite rare in film. I was wondering what inspired you to do this.
Well, I don't have a large body of work, but when I look back on, what I have done, obviously, I am a woman myself. Therefore, it sort of, it is a general subject that interests me. But if I if I sort of look back on what I have done, I did a short film that won at Toronto's Worldwide Short Film Festival called Killing Time, very much about, a woman in a moment of transition in her life. I did a TV documentary with Josie Vogel called The Secret Language of Girls, and I guess it is. It's something that I feel is maybe not present enough in our popular culture. The voice of women, the stories of women. Certainly in our literature, it's coming out. I think in our music, we're starting to be much more exposed and developing a taste and a desire for women's voices and women's stories. But I think cinema is still a bit sparse in those areas. So it's really something that I think I just carry with me. I didn't really think about it that closely, but it feels like it just comes out of me.
There's on the website, the year Dolly Parton was my mom.ca. I noticed there was a great contest. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, are you speaking of my role model contest?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a really cool idea. We've asked people to submit their role models, who they sort of look up to, and why, and give us a little blurb on that, and a photo. And we will, from all of the entries, we're asking people to vote online, and the top 6 entries that get the most votes will get their profiles on the extras section in our DVD. So those people will be able to talk about their role models on our extra features in the DVD.
Which is amazing because they're part of the film and part of the history of the film.
Absolutely, it's a spectacular idea, and I mean, I don't think it's any surprise that there's a lot of people who cite Dolly Parton as their role model, and there's a million stories about why. They're really she's touched a lot of people, like you say, worldwide.
Yeah, I was looking through all of the people who had submitted in, and it was amazing. I mean, really, first of all, you have a pile of people on there who've put their thoughts in, but people were saying Dolly Parton saved my life, and it was amazing.
It really is. There's one quite a touching story. A young man got in touch with us through our Facebook fan page before we started this contest to tell us that he couldn't believe. He said, "Where did you get the idea for this film? This is my life." Wow. He had gone into the orphanage. Both his parents died when he was young, and so he was in the system very early on. And I think he heard Dolly Parton's "Love Is Like a Butterfly" when he was 4 or 5, and fell in love and really convinced himself that she was his mother, and got him through a lot of really hard times, just hanging on to that idea and that image of her. And so it was pretty touching. And he's got a fantastic voice, and he's done a couple of covers of her songs up on YouTube, which are really good.
Oh,
so
amazing.
It's just lovely.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your cast. I was really struck by the young actress who plays the lead, Julia Stone.
Yeah, we actually found her on Facebook, of all things. We'd done a Canada-wide casting the traditional way, and we were, we saw a lot of great girls, but no one that really fit what I felt, Elizabeth needed. And so out of desperation on our Facebook fan page, we just, asked girls to put up tapes and their auditions. And Julia was one of the 4 brave souls that submitted, and her audition was decent. It wasn't earth-shattering, but we'd asked the girls each to do like a 1-minute speech to the camera, just to talk about themselves and why they thought they should be Elizabeth. And when I saw Julia Stone and heard what she had to say, I was sure that she had something really special. She's just she has that very, very rare combination of old soul maturity and complete innocence. I mean, she's so unaffected, and she's just really, really centered and soulful. And when we did finally get to meet her. Her mom flew out on air miles so that we could meet her. She's from Vancouver, and we met her in Montreal with another finalist for the role, and she had much less experience than this other girl, but there was just something so innately right about her, and we cast her on a really huge gamble, but I mean, it just, it didn't feel like we were doing anything crazy. It really felt right.
Yeah, and Masha Grenon?
Yes, Masha Grenon. She's a kind of a sweetheart in Quebec. I mean, she grew up on TV and doing films in French Quebec. She's done a few things in English. Most notably, really recently, she had a very small part on Barney's version, the Mordecai Richler adapt. And she's also a very rare jewel in the sense that she's fluently bilingual, although she did have to spend some time preparing for the role just so that she wouldn't have to, because French is her mother tongue, so she didn't want to have to think about the language as she was performing. So she spent a lot of time listening to CBC radio out of Winnipeg, and just getting sort of the prairie kind of music in her voice, and she's I think this is one of her largest roles to date, and certainly her largest role in English, and I think she carried it off so well. She really brings in an amazing performance.
Yeah, the two of them as mother and daughter it was an amazing dynamic. I really felt that. Also, the film looks like a postcard from 1976. Tell us a little bit about the detail that went into the look of the film.
Well, I guess I've discovered that I am a bit of a detail-oriented person. Certainly, setting yourself up to do a first feature, I think no one really knows the scope and the extent of the challenges until you're actually doing it. It's an incredibly huge undertaking. Under the best of circumstances, but when you set out to do your first feature and you also make it a period piece, it's sort of upping the stakes quite a bit. And I couldn't let a lot go because I really felt it was important to the story, to the credibility and the authenticity of the character's emotional journey, that the viewer not feel like they couldn't be distracted by anomalies or anachronisms or whatever. So I really wanted the authenticity of the time and place to be unquestioned, and it took a lot of great people. My designer Noel Mostarazan did a fantastic job, sort of recreating the decor of the period and making it feel lived in, which was very important to me. And my costume designer Marianne Carter, who sourced out some incredible, very authentic costumes and clothing and stuff that helped, I hope anyway, create a sense that this is a story taking place in this time, in this place, without it being too much of a show and tell sort of thing, like, oh, do you remember the etch-a-sketch and the spirograph and stuff like that. I mean, we try not to make it a big museum piece. I just really wanted it to feel authentic, and it took a lot of me being very anal to pull that off.
Well, it worked. Now, something I really had noticed about the film was how you directed it. You had mentioned previously you are kind of a newer director. The thing that got me, when I was watching the film, I thought, this really looks like a French-Canadian looking film, but it's an English-Canadian storyline. And then I read your bio, and it said you grew up in Calgary, but you've done a lot of your filmmaking career in Quebec. It made a lot of sense. Just
so I'm clear, you didn't know my background before you saw the film and you had that impression?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? really? Wow.
Yeah.
I'm flattered. I think that's an amazing compliment. I really, I think what I've been exposed to and what Quebec cinema has to offer is it's some of the richest cinema that we've produced, and I guess some of it is maybe rubbing off on me, which is really great news.
Yeah, no, it was very visually captivating. I was, so you seem to blend the two really well. Tell me about the amazing soundtrack. You had, I couldn't believe it when I saw the credits. You had Nelly Furtado singing Dolly Parton songs, The Seeker, and Martha Wainwright and the Waylon Jennings. Tell me, how they came on board.
Well, it all started obviously by Dolly granting us the publishing rights for her songs that we used in the film. She, in her initial letter, she basically said that she would do that and then do whatever she could to help us get the mechanical rights for her original songs, which are the songs that she performs herself. And it had always been my plan, not just budget-wise, but also because I really wanted to underline the fact that Dolly is a fantastic songwriter, and in order to do that, I wanted to have her songs reinterpreted by other artists, and I wanted them to be Canadian, and I wanted them to be women. And so when we got to the place where we were ready to do the music, and Dolly had signed off, and we were able to get the songs that we requested, I had 5 songs that I knew that I wanted to remake, and I'd been carrying around a wish list of several Canadian artists for quite a while, and Nelly had always been on it, and Martha had always been on it. Coral Egan also, who is a very well-known jazz and blues singer in Montreal. She's been someone that I always heard also doing a Dolly song. And then the Waylon Jennings, they were someone that, because we worked in Manitoba, I really felt that was a really great fit. I wanted to bring a piece of Manitoba as well to the soundtrack. And Geneviève Dupin, who was a Franco-Manitoban but transplanted to Quebec, I discovered her sort of at the very last minute. The man I worked with who did the arrangements for the remakes, he had her on his list to be our ghost singer for the remakes, and I actually heard her on CBC about 10 minutes before I met him. So we were all like, it's all a bunch of serendipity and conversions. But so Nelly was the first one I went to, because she had actually worked with me to possibly do a role in the film. She was maybe going to play Stella, and we worked together, so we had a bit of a relationship. So I approached her, and she said yes immediately. She was all over it. And Martha Wainwright is someone who I know some people in her family, so I was able to contact her through some of the people I have connections to in Montreal. And everyone, with no exception, everyone just jumped at the chance to be able to do a Dolly Parton song, and these girls came on board, and many of them came into the studio and recorded it live off the floor with us. We had some of the best musicians in Montreal playing with us, and we were able to do quite a few of the tracks with the singers and the band, and we didn't do any overdubs, and it was such a great vibe. I don't know if you can tell, but I loved that part of doing this movie. It was such a candy for me. It was amazing.
Yeah, and the soundtrack's already out. It's on Amazon?
Yes, you can get it on Amazon. It certainly is. It would pay to get the actual CD, just because on the CD there's 2 bonus tracks that aren't available on iTunes. So if you can go through Amazon, or I think HMV and other outlets in various cities have it. But you can get on the actual CD Dolly Parton singing "Love Is Like a Butterfly," and the Nelly Furtado version of her song "The Seeker" is only available on the CD. So it's definitely worth trying to pick up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and my composer Luc Sicard, he was my co-producer on the album, and his music, the original score, is also on the album, which I think it's just really some gorgeous stuff.
Now, when I grew up, at one point, I grew up partially in Western Canada, my whole world became infused with Dolly. I'm kind of of that late 70s, early 80s era.
Oh, yeah, she was big. She was
Yeah, I mean, she was incredibly popular. A lot of themes in the movie are the kind of Dolly philosophy, you know, talking about equality and acceptance, thinking with your heart, that kind of a thing.
Right.
You know, now, Dolly had taught me two things. I could be anything I wanted to be, and I could wear a lot of makeup while doing
well, you did it.
Something I still carry with me. Through the process of making this film, I was wondering how Dolly had inspired you.
Well, I mean, you know, thinking with your heart, and you know, she certainly embodies that whole principle of, you know, if you set your mind to it, if there's something that you want, you know, you just have to believe that you can do it and never let up. And I mean, she's I think the quintessential mascot for pursuing a dream. I mean, she knew from a very young age what it was that she wanted to do, and I mean, against all kinds of odds, you know, social and economic and everything, she you know, she went for it, and she doesn't know the meaning of the word impossible, I think, and I think that's certainly with me what I lived in this entire project. I felt like I had something in my heart that I wanted to do, that I wanted to say, and I think it, you know, on the surface looked slightly impossible, but I never questioned it. I kept moving, and I kept putting one foot in front of the other, and I always had a sort of a sense that if Dolly was, you know, sort of behind it, then we were going to make it happen.
That's very good. How can Canadians connect with the year Dolly Parton was my mom?
Well, I mean, the time, certainly the place, the setting is all Canadian. I think the quintessential Canadian journey, the quest for identity, is very much a theme that's explored throughout the film. You know, and I think there's a bit of a subtext in that whole thing with the cable TV coming across our borders in the 70s, and how everything that was coming up from the States looked so much bigger than life and so much more appealing, and it was always something that we were sort of drawn to. And you know, Dolly Parton kind of personifies that aspect of what, you know, Elizabeth thinks that she needs in her life in order to find her true identity and make her feel as special as she actually is. So it is a bit of a metaphor for identity, and not just personal identity, but also our national identity, and how we're on a bit of that journey, and the whole road trip encapsulates that as well. I think Canadians really respond to, and can relate to the road trip aspect for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Now, before we wrap up here, would you be willing to play the Dolly Parton pop quiz?
Oh! Sure.
Oh, good. This will test your skill on how well you know Dolly Parton.
All right.
So, first question: where did Dolly Parton grow up?
She grew up in Sevierville, close to Sevierville, in Tennessee.
Okay. And what was her first hit song?
Okay, I don't know that.
Jolene.
It was okay. So, I'm thinking way back in the Porter Wagner days and stuff. But okay, so Jolene was her first Billboard #1.
Yeah, probably independent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know what her first movie role was?
I'm thinking. Okay, I'm trying to go back in my head. She was Steel Magnolias come before 9 to 5?
Well, it's one of the two. You're absolutely right, but
it's okay. So 9 to 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Who did she sing the duet Islands in the Stream with?
Oh my God, Kenny Rogers. we played that every single day. And when we were shooting in Winnipeg, we went and bought a Dolly CD. We played it in the van, our crew van. We played it every single day, and we cranked it. I love that song.
The problem with that is it sticks in your mind, and and it plays over and over and over again. And last question, in what movie did Dolly give the advice, get off the cross because somebody needs the wood?
Oh, what a great line. Okay, well, I'm just going to take a wild stab at it because I can't tell you. Best Little Whorehouse in Texas?
Very close. It was in a movie called Straight Talk.
Okay.
Yeah, and
right.
She was a radio personality, like a Dr. Laura type person. So.
And what a perfect title for a Dolly Parton film too.
Yeah.
Straight Talk, because that's exactly what she does.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out.
Well, thank you, Kinda. It's been lovely talking to you.
The film is playing currently in Quebec?
Yes, it was released on March 4th in Quebec, and it will be released March 18th in Toronto, and then rolling out across Canada after that.
Perfect. Well, I would definitely recommend the Press Plus One audience check this film out when it comes to your area. And if it isn't in your area, find out how you can get it into your area, because this is really worth going to. It's a great Canadian film.